Hello, WiCCD members. My name is Maya Shukeri, and I am WiCCD's Education Committee Director. I'm happy to introduce our series, Finding Your Niche. In this series, we will interview female criminal defense lawyers who practice in a specific area within criminal law. The goal of our series is to highlight the work and accomplishments of female criminal defense lawyers, but it is also a way for us to introduce you to specialty areas within criminal law. We hope we can help you find your niche. Enjoy the series. Hi, Sam. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I'm very happy to meet you. I never met you before, and it's like some of my guests, some of them I've met before, others I haven't. So I'm very excited to meet you and to chat with you because it will be an opportunity for me to get to know more about you. And I will first start by clarifying how we pronounce your name because I have the wrong pronunciation. It's Sam Puchala. The C is silent. And Sam, maybe you can tell us where are you originally from, since you have a different name that is not very familiar to many of us, like me. I also have a different name. So let's start by you telling us who you are and a little bit about your practice.
Yes, thank you. And you did pronounce it correctly. So it's Puhala. The C is silent. So I was born and raised in Woodstock, Ontario. And now I live in London, Ontario, which is in the southwest of the province. But so I'm first generation Canadian, but my family is originally from Eastern Europe. So Puhala is actually, it's not a common Polish name, but it originates from Poland. So my dad is from Poland and my mom is from Hungary. And they both came to Woodstock and met there and had me. So that's where my last name comes from. And I unfortunately don't speak Polish, but my mother tongue is Hungarian. So I first learned to speak Hungarian and then English, and then later I learned French through school. But I'm from Woodstock, Ontario, and I've moved a little bit around the province and across Canada, but originally born and raised in Woodstock. And yeah, that's where my name comes from. So
All right. And you're a criminal defense lawyer.
I am. So I practice exclusively in criminal defense. I have a limited license. I don't do any other area of law. My favorite thing to tell people is that I exclusively practice in criminal defense. I have one job, I'm very good at it, and I collaborate with a lot of lawyers who work in other areas. But criminal is all that I do, and everything else, immigration, employment, family law, I refer all of those matters out for opinions and collaboration with those lawyers. But yeah, exclusively criminal defense. And in fact, I have a quite specific practice and niche in offenses against the person. And almost all of my clients are first time offenders. So it's a very, very specific practice. But yeah, exclusively criminal. I don't even do complainant work. I've dabbled in that a little bit, but it's really criminal defense and specific types of offenses that I find very fascinating.
Okay, and you're based in London, Ontario. You do represent as well some clients outside of London, but your base is London. And I wanted to ask you, Sam, if you can tell us a bit more of the nature of your practice. How are you operating? Are you on your own? Are you in a firm? Did you start working on, and if you're on your own, did you start right away working on your own, or did you have any firm experience prior to starting your own practice?
Yeah, so I'm currently the founder of Velox Law Professional Corporation, which is a professional corporation, and I am based in London because that's where I live right now. So I opened up. I recently launched my own practice, so March 1st, so just a few months ago now. And before that, I was called to the bar in 2019. So I'm coming up on 4 years of practice. And before having launched just recently, I worked as an associate at Conron Law Professional Corporation with Carolyn Conron in London. And in fact, I had worked with her as an associate right from my call to the bar. I articled with her and I did my summers, my 1L and my 2L summers with her. So I met Carolyn Conron in 2016 and was fortunate to get right into the practice. I knew from day one at law school that I was going to become a criminal lawyer, and I got right in there. And we had a really good dynamic duo for the years that we were together. And I was very fortunate because she provided excellent mentorship that allowed me to learn a lot and get to know the players in the Southwest region. before the pandemic hit, because I was of course called the summer right before the pandemic hit. So I was
Right.
really fortunate to have that level of mentorship, and then I opened up my own business. So now I'm the a sole practitioner. So it's a professional corporation, and I have a student. My student followed me to my practice, and now I have my own business, which I love, being my own boss. And so that's where I operate from now. I have an office in a law chambers with lots of senior counsel. So I'm learning things every day, and I'm 300 meters from the court personally and my office. So I live 150 meters from my office, and my office is another 150 meters to the courthouse. So I'm in court all the time. I love the proximity of downtown living. And I do also have clients in other jurisdictions. So certainly the whole Southwest region, Woodstock, my hometown, which I of course service, St. Thomas, Sarnia, and I even have, I have a file in Brampton. I had a call from Cornwall, so I'm slowly taking over the province. But yeah, I'm based in London, and I ride motorcycles, so I like to, certainly in the better weather too, ride out to other areas, and I have a lot of fun with it. So I actually tied motorcycle riding into my brand, the word Velox. So Velox Law Professional Corporation is my business, and the word Velox is the Latin term for swift or rapid, and that was inspired from motorcycle riding. So if you check my
Okay.
website out at veloxlaw.ca, you can see the whole motor. I have pictures of my motorcycles there, and my business marketing, I would say, is very edgy. So edgy and modern. So that's kind of my whole shtick with my business. But yeah, it's just me in terms of counsel, and then I have my students. So
And you were called to the bar in 2019, but when did you start your own practice? Which year? That was after the pandemic, right?
oh yeah, so I was called to the bar 2019 in the summer, so that would have been just before the pandemic, and then I launched my business just recently. So I was an associate for those the first 3 years of my practice, an associate, and then decided to branch out on my own. So it's very recent, the jump, and certainly, a big step to take, but it was one that I was ready to do and very exciting. I'm having a lot of fun calling my own shots. And of course, if you check out my website, the creative kind of branding that I'm doing. And primarily one of the reasons that I wanted to do that was also because of the studies that I did in French. And so if you look, like, my business is fully bilingual. I'm registered as a professional corporation in both languages. So both of the names, Velox Law Professional Corporation and Société Professionnelle Droit Velox. So I'm heavily involved with the Francophone Lawyers Association. I'll actually be in Ottawa for 4 days this upcoming weekend. So that's something that I was very passionate about and excited to bring out in my business, because it's something that sets me apart. I did do my studies fully in French. I went to Université de Moncton, so out in Moncton, New Brunswick, to be able to do my common law fully in French.
Okay, nice. And so you're obviously enjoying your practice and working on your own. And did you have any difficulties, Sam, in terms of starting the practice? Like, especially because, I mean, we can feel that there is a difference, or there is a shift in before the pandemic, the pre-pandemic time, and post-pandemic. Did you feel like that it was a bit difficult to start your own practice now at this time where everything's more expensive and it's more difficult to network and to have account mentoring? So tell us a bit more about that, because it will be important for lawyers who want to start on their own, but who are a little bit discouraged because of the general climate right now. So you're someone who just recently started your own practice. You're a relatively recent call, and you took that risk, which for a lot of people, even without the pandemic, is a big, giant step, and which is risky, but it's a little bit more so now. So just tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, it's definitely, timing is funny as well, because I had all these like travels lined up. So I just got back from Japan and like Vegas. So I was in Japan for 2 weeks, and that was 1 month after launching. So it's definitely been a chaotic time for me. But yeah, high risks, high rewards, right? And I guess what I would say is, again, I was very fortunate because I had the experience coming into opening my own practice, that I had already a well-established reputation, I believe, within the local bar and the surrounding jurisdictions. And it's just as I was starting to kind of branch out and being recognized for, my networks that I have in Ottawa and my networks in Toronto, because I got accepted to different appellate programs. So I was I recently did the Rosenberg move, which I know a lot of our colleagues have done. And so being in different jurisdictions, a lot of it has resulted in a lot of referrals. So primarily, like now I'm starting to get those personal referrals that were coming to me. But I did have the benefit of having already established, knowing how to navigate the practice and also going through the transitional pains of the pandemic. I did have the support within a firm for that. But there comes a point where if you're ready to do that, it for me, and I mean, I'm not out of in the clear yet. I mean, it's been a few months, but I can say that I'm doing very well. I'm, a lot of people don't like to talk about money. I have a money coach, and I'm always, preaching about people talking about that. I'm looking at, if it keeps up this way, because in business you always have like better times and worse times, but I'm looking at $250,000 to $500,000 for my first year if it keeps up this rate, right? So you always have to plan for, if a pandemic were to hit in the future. I'm always really big on savings and everything like that, because you just never know what's going to happen, right? And during the pandemic, it's interesting because my area of focus with first time offenders, I mean, from a business standpoint, I don't really have a lot of repeat business. So it's kind of interesting because it's like, oh, like, is the phone going to ring? Are there enough people that are being charged with crimes? And interestingly enough, during the pandemic, what I was noticing is that people that were never getting in trouble were starting to get in trouble. And that's because there was this huge shift, right? So, I mean, perhaps it's not the best to say. People always say, like, are you ever worried you're going to run out of business? I was like, maybe if public policy changes and, we eliminate poverty and other problems that happen in society more largely, then my phone will stop ringing. But that would be a happy day, I think. So, but yeah, I think it's interesting to see sort of the shifts that happen. Like people were losing their jobs, they were at home and they were drinking. A lot of my matters are domestic. Like I'd probably say 80% of my caseload at any given time are domestic matters. And I'm very interested in the psychology that comes into he said, she said matters, or matters of offenses against the person, where usually it's a WD case. So I'm almost always calling evidence in my trials, and that's obviously a decision that we make, when it comes time. But I'm always preparing for that, and I've had a lot of good mentorship in terms of I find it very interesting. So I have a lot to work with usually in cross because there's a lot of acrimony in the relationship, and the trials when I make it there are usually very messy and they're never simple, and they always run over time because there's more that comes out. And I've had like the craziest things happen in the middle of trials. Like there was one where the complainant's mom, who was the second crown witness, was caught on video listening through the door in the middle of the trial. And like I got the video disclosed the next day, and she didn't realize that she was being recorded, so she actually lied to the judge and said that she was just walking around. And then we had to take a break. She was bawling on the stand. So like I've seen it all, right? Because the domestics I find are just so messy, but I just find them psychologically interesting. And there's a lot of either false accusations or a lot of drama going on. So I've definitely, I think, carved out a niche in these types of offenses. But I also do a lot of, like I have had some pretty serious, like aggravated assaults, working on a few homicide files right now, including murders. I don't do murders on my own. That's something that I help with senior counsel because I'm still quite junior. So, but yeah, I find it very interesting. And like I said, it was risky to do it, but I'm glad that I did. And again, I'm only in my first few months of operation, but I'm just having a lot of fun with it, and it just motivates me even more. And I was lucky too, because all my clients came over with me to my practice. So that was another thing I think in terms of challenges. Getting a client base can be tough, but I've been very, very fortunate with my clients. These are people that I've been working with for a long time. Their files usually take a lot of time to make it to trial. So that's another benefit that I had, having previously worked with a firm, is that I already had a very solid and loyal client base.
Client base. Yes. And of course, because you're on your own now, it is very important to keep your connections and to be connected to other lawyers, senior lawyers, or even lawyers who are the same year of call. It's always important to chat with other lawyers, get their feedback on what you're doing. And one thing that I'm always interested in hearing about is how are lawyers who were recently called, how are they able to connect to other lawyers, especially after the pandemic? Because that's also something that has changed, unfortunately. Having practiced before the pandemic, I remember it was a lot easier to have in-person social events and to connect. There were like almost every month there was like a social event or something happening. Now, I mean, we're getting back into more in-person events, but it's not at the frequency or the level that we had before the pandemic. So how are you able to connect Now, Sam, is it more virtually? Is it in person? If it's in person, how is it happening?
Yeah, well, the first thing that I'll say is that my heart really goes out to anyone who got called after the pandemic, and especially shortly after the pandemic. Because again, I was called just before it, but I had that 3 years of experience working, under the wing of counsel who was already established in the region. So, and I was heavily involved with the CLA. Like I've gone to every fall conference since I was a
Mhm.
student, and I just love the community there. And now with WiCCD, so there's lots of great legal organizations that I would say everyone should get involved with. So that's always a strength that I had. Like I was involved with, and the Francophone Lawyers Association. So anyone who was called after the pandemic, it's definitely a different ball game. I would have heavily struggled with that, had I been in a different situation. So it's objectively, I think, a difficult thing, and I think all the more reason for people, counsel, to get involved with these organizations who are there to help us out and to connect us. So I've benefited from mentorship programs across the board, and it's opened up really good opportunities. So like WiCCD and the CLA are what allowed me, for instance, to do the Rosenberg mentorship moot, which was an appellate advocacy program in Toronto. So and there's just so many great opportunities. And I find also our criminal bar is just so great at being there. And anytime I reach out to anyone, whether it's on the listserv or just through mentorship programs, formally or informally, I've just found such a great response. Like people are willing to pick up the phone and just answer random questions. And, I always try to answer calls to help that way too, whether, senior, junior, we're so happy to learn from each other. And the other thing I would say is also CPD. One thing that I think sets me apart is that despite my year of call, I would say that I'm very well versed in um, a lot of knowledge from people who are much smarter and more experienced than I am, because I attend a lot of CPD. Like I know we only have to do whatever 12 or 15 hours. It's broken down, but like I do like I think every year I've done more than 40 hours of CPD, and that's since I was a first year student. And I don't do that because I have to. I do it because I find it fascinating. I'm very passionate about the law. I love it. So I'm always learning. There's really, really good quality CPD. So come to all the conferences, get your CPD. Usually it's cheaper the more junior you are. Like now I'm forking out a lot more money for these things, and they're so worth it. But come to all the CPDs, come and say hi. Like there's lawyers that I see all the time, and then when I go up and introduce myself, they're just so receptive. And yeah, like making it out to different events. And I think on the front of virtual versus in person, I'm a big, big proponent of in person. So whenever you notice me going to, like, I was just at the women's gala for the Criminal Lawyers Association in Toronto, and I'm in like Toronto every other weekend. I mean, it's not that far; it's just a ride away, or I'll take the train. But I think it's about really making the effort to make it out in person, whether it's far or near. Like I'm going to Ottawa as well, and there's virtual options to these conferences. I'll also be at the spring conference of the Criminal Lawyers Association. So the
I'll
more
see
events
you
that we
there
can
then. That's coming up.
Oh, great. We can
Yeah.
finally meet. I'm
Yes.
so excited because
That's
there's all
next
these lists
week.
of people that there's all these people that I want to meet. So yeah, I'm excited to see there. I'm the visionary sponsor of that conference. So you'll see me there. And so that's an opportunity that you and I will finally be able to connect at in person, even though we finally made this virtual connection. So I know recently we had been in touch because my member profile was recently featured in the Criminal Lawyers Association, thanks to yourself. So yeah, taking the effort, like I think it takes everyone making that extra step. And now that, we don't have the same risks as we did in 2020, like there was so much that we didn't know. And now that we have vaccination and things are, maybe the new normal, but I think we really have to push to make these things happen. So if you can attend virtually, great. But if you can come in person, like make it happen, make it a trip. So I'm really, really putting that effort in, and it comes at a cost, right? Like these things aren't cheap all the time, and staying overnight in Toronto isn't always like the best price tag, but it's like, you can make connections and make it work for you, even if it's just a day trip. But the more that we can connect, and I was speaking with other stakeholders, and they said, oh, we'll have to come to London. The London delegation's doing such a good job of showing up that we have to show up for them as well. So yeah, come to London. We can go for coffee, we can have events here, and I'll come to Toronto, like wherever in Northern. Like I did my undergrad in Sudbury, so like I'll go wherever, right? And that's why with my cases lately, when people are calling me, like I charge by the hour, so it's like, yeah, you want me to come to you, like you'll pay my mileage, whatever, but like I'm open for business and it's going really well. So yeah, we have to make the effort, because I just love being in person. Like I litigate in person. I am rarely on Zoom, even for just adjournments, because of my proximity. I'll walk over, right? So I think we need to make the effort, and hopefully that'll get us to some level of reconnecting, because I miss those chats with senior counsel, right? So it's happening more and more now, but every time I go to court, I learn something new, right? Because people are starting to come back, and that just makes me so happy, because I think that's what it's all about.
Well, it was very nice to chat with you, Sam, and to get to know you. And hopefully, we'll meet soon in person and we'll continue to chat again. Thank you for taking the time for this interview today. And it's very exciting to see how enthusiastic you are about your practice and about criminal law and all the things that you enjoy doing. So I want to wish you good luck with everything, and just keep doing what you're doing. It seems like everything is going super well. So congratulations.
Yes, thank you so much for having me again. And I really love what I do. And I'm looking forward to finally meeting you in person. And certainly to anyone watching, if you have any questions or you just want to chat, like I'm so open to making new friends. And yeah, just love the community that we have. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Sam.